to the Custom Built and Screwed podcast, Episode 6. Today we're starting with a scenario that keeps a lot of Canadians awake, not because of Netflix, but because of fear of what happens when things go wrong at home. Imagine this. It's 3:20 a.m., you're dead asleep, your alarm doesn't go off, your phone doesn't ping, but you hear something, a noise that doesn't belong. You check the hallway, you see someone standing there, not your teenager sneaking in late, not your spouse grabbing water, a stranger. What do? For most of us, the instinct is pretty simple. Protect, neutralize, survive. But in Canada, the law has opinions about how you do that, and if you overdo it, you could end up in court facing aggravated assault charges just for staying alive. Today, we're digging into Ontario's home invasion case, while self-defense in Canada is a legal minefield, and whether we need a castle doctrine north of the border. Then, we'll hit housing chaos, prefab hype, economic whiplash, and even Pierre Poilievre's political comeback. But first, let's talk about what happens when survival instincts and Canadian law collide. The incident. Let's set the scene. Lindsay, Ontario. It's early morning, about 3:20 a.m. A 44-year-old man, Jeremy David McDonald, wakes up to find a stranger inside of his apartment. Not on the porch, not fiddling with the shed, inside. There's a confrontation. McDonald grabs a knife. Things escalate fast. The intruder, Michael Calbreen, ends up with life-threatening injuries and needs an airlift to the hospital. Now, you'd think, open and shut. Guy defended himself, bad guy broke in, end of story. Wrong. The next day, police charge McDonald with aggravated assault and assault with a weapon. Meanwhile, Breen, the intruder, faces charges for break and enter, weapons possession, mischief, theft, and violating probation. So both guys are charged. The victim of the break-in is also now the accused. So some reactions have been. Premier Doug Ford jumped on the mic and said, something is broken. Argument, nobody should be criminalized for protecting their home, and obviously so. Kawartha Lake's police chief offers a different angle. Self-defense is allowed, but force has to be proportionate to the threat. What? Proportionate to the threat? What proportion is too much for protecting your own home, your wife, your kids, your pets? Proportionate according to who? Me at 3 a.m. with adrenaline spiking, or a Crown prosecutor sipping coffee a week later. The legal reality is Canada does allow self-defense, but it's a conditional permission slip, and if they think you cross a line, you're getting charged first and explaining later. Here's a plain English version of Section 34 of the Criminal Code. You can use force to defend yourself or someone else if you believe you're under attack or about to be, and the force you use is reasonable in the circumstances. What does reasonable mean? Well, courts look at, was the intruder armed? What was said? Did you start it or escalate it? Did you keep going after the threat was neutralized? All very logical on paper, but here's the disconnect. Paper law assumes calm judgment. Real life doesn't. At 3 a.m., don't you think proportionally charts? If you think, if I hesitate, my family dies, Castle Doctrine versus Canada. So let's compare. In many US states, Castle Doctrine says if somebody unlawfully enters your home, you can use deadly force, period. No duty to retreat. In Canada, we don't have the Castle Doctrine. You can defend yourself, yes, but only as far as a prosecutor later agrees was reasonable. Which means what? If you swing too hard, stab too deep, or keep going 1 second too long, you're wearing handcuffs? Even if you were the one who dialed 911 later? Make it make sense. If somebody breaks into your home, I'm not asking too many questions. I don't know about you. This isn't a hypothetical example. McDonald is now staring at court dates, he's staring at legal bills, and the very real possibility of jail because someone else made a decision to break into his home. My take, if you break into my house, you just volunteered for whatever happens next. No warnings, no polite Canadian excuse me. You forfeited proportionally when you breached my door. Does that make me a vigilante? No, it makes me a father, a husband, and someone who wants to live through the night. I've got kids in bedrooms down the hall. I'm not playing negotiation. I'm not playing games in the dark. I am going to do what I need to do to make sure my family is safe and protected. Let's talk about some changes or potential changes. And I'm not saying that Canada needs the full US-style Castle Doctrine, but we need something closer to this. Presumption of justification inside the home if an intruder is present. Burden should shift to the Crown to prove excessive force, not on you to justify why you fought to survive. This isn't about gun culture. It's about not punishing victims for refusing to die quietly. Should Canada adopt a castle doctrine style law for home invasions, or keep the reasonable force standard that basically second guesses your survival instinct? DM me, comment on Instagram, drop a voice note, because I want to hear what you would do if you woke up at 3 a.m. and saw a shadow in your hallway. Let's move on to the next topic of today. Let's pivot from what happens inside your house at 3 a.m. to what's happening inside Parliament, because believe it or not, the two are connected. If you think home invasions cause chaos, wait until you see the policy gymnastics happening in Ottawa right now. Pierre Poilievre is back in the House. And no, not the Ottawa seat he lost. This time he parachuted into an Alberta seat for a by-election win so decisive, it looked like a varsity team playing against kindergartners. The numbers, well, let's break it down. The riding was Battle River Crowfoot, rural Alberta, and the result, Pierre walked away with over 80% of the vote. The turnout was only 30%, which isn't shocking for a summer by-election, but still, it's a flex. So what does this mean? Well, the Conservatives now have their leader back in the House of Commons, giving them a louder mic during question period and a stage for campaign-style sound bites heading into what could be an early election cycle. The gloves are coming off, and they're spiked with TikTok clips. I think everybody that had these dreams and grandiose thoughts that Carney was going to come in and save the day believed something that just ultimately came to be untrue. We have not got a trade deal with the United States yet. There's nothing but tension between Canada and the US. We aren't getting any pipelines built in this country. I mean, we need to free our natural resources. Like, we should be one of the richest nations in the world. We should not have people living in their RVs in highway rest stops. That is not the Canada I grew up in, and that sure as hell isn't the Canada I want for our future. I can tell you, the gloves are going to come off and they're going to be spiked with TikTok clips. Let's wait and see what happens in question period. Now, why does this matter for housing? Here's why you should care if you swing a hammer, pull permits, or just pray for mortgage relief. Housing is political oxygen right now, and affordability is tanking confidence in government faster than TikTok kills attention spans. The Liberals, now under Mark Carney, are betting big on federal mega programs, Housing Accelerator Fund, interprovincial trade harmonization, tax tweaks for first-time buyers. Poilievre, he's going full populist with Axe the Gatekeepers. His pitch, slash municipal red tape, impose hard approval deadlines, withhold federal transfers from cities that drag their feet on permits. Would that be too much to ask? I mean, I think it should be legislated. And, we talked about this in our previous podcast about, having limitations. Those limitations should be on a function of how large a project is. But certainly, if somebody wants to do a subdevelopment or something like that, developers put up a ton of risk and a ton of capital. And I know a lot of you out there think that they just sit back and collect money. And truthfully, from 2018 to 2021, 2022, they did just that. I can promise you, there are a lot of developers that are declaring bankruptcy right now because they have been bled dry waiting for building permits and development contribution funds. These amounts have just spiked in the last 4 years, just insanely so. And there's been no predictability about them as well. So developers are purchasing land thinking that they can do X and their costs are going to be Y, only to realize after the fact that, well, no, the DCCs have gone through the roof, mortgage rates have gone up, and now I can't make this project make sense. It's no longer financially viable. So could you imagine having limitations on permits? Imagine if that threat actually had teeth. Imagine sending an email to City Hall like, hey, approve my permit or Pierre freezes your infrastructure cash. Would it work? Maybe. Would I pay for a front row seat to watch? Absolutely. Bureaucracy tax. Let's get ready for this because it's on my list of things to be upset about. But here's my beef on it, all right? And it doesn't care what color your lawn sign is. Red, blue, green, it doesn't matter. We have families waiting 8 to 12 months for permits that should take 8 weeks. That's not a backlog. That's a bureaucracy tax on every homeowner, builder, and lender in this entire country. And every extra month, that's more carrying costs, more rate exposure, and more inflation in the pipeline. The housing crisis isn't just about supply, it's about time theft. And City Hall, they're the thieves. So where could this go? What happens now? Well, expect the Conservatives to hammer every housing delay like it's a rented mule. Expect the Liberals to keep rolling out funding announcements for prefab, multifamily, and transit-oriented projects. And expect municipalities to play "we need more resources" like it's their greatest hit, while still making you resubmit the same site plan 3 times because someone didn't like the font size on sheet A101. We have had all sorts of horror stories about permits here at Sprucehill. We're currently waiting on a permit and have been waiting for a permit for a simple garage renovation. And we are almost 10 months in permitting. 10 months for a garage. Why? Because there are bylaws, there are departments at City Hall, and they're just not talking to each other. The bylaws that have been written are confusing, they're ambiguous, they're open to interpretation. Nothing is clear. And we've just added more bylaws over the last 5 years. You know, a lot of you guys out there might think, hey, well, we've added this and we've done that, so we're being progressive. My take, my position is no, we have been becoming regressive. It is becoming harder to get a building permit. It's becoming harder to run a construction company like mine. It has not become easier. And if you ask me, progressive means things should be getting easier, not harder, cheaper, not more expensive. That's progressive. All of these additional bylaws, all of these additional rules, all of this additional red tape, regressive. That's my take. What do you think? The bottom line, Poilievre is back in Parliament and housing just got hotter as an election wedge. Will Axe the Gatekeepers fix anything? Will Carney's Accelerator Fund actually accelerate? I'll believe it when I see a city permit issued in under 30 days without a bribe, a blood oath, or a seance. Until then, keep your hard hats on because this political job site is just getting noisy. So we've talked a lot about what happens inside your house at 3 a.m. We've talked about politicians fighting over how to fix housing. And now it's time to ask, is any of this actually working? Spoiler alert, it's complicated. The good news, kind of, is Canada just posted its highest housing starts in 3 years. Annualized pace for July, around 294,000 units. That's up for 283,000 in June. The 6-month trend, well, about 263,000. Because the engine driving those numbers is multifamily, high-rise apartments, condos, rental towers, not detached homes. So if you're a family dreaming of a yard big enough to park a tricycle, those starts are still flatlined. Ontario, probably the problem child. Now, while some provinces are cooking, Ontario is dragging its boots like a teenager told to clean the garage. Why? Land costs are insane. Carrying costs have exploded thanks to higher interest rates. Pre-sales are down because buyers are spooked. And here's the big one, municipal approvals still move slower than government Wi-Fi. If you've ever watched paint dry, congratulations. You've basically attended a permit review meeting in the GTA. Let's talk about housing affordability. Tell you what, you blink and you're gonna miss it. Out east, PEI just broke ground on an affordable housing project worth $1.4 million. Great, right? Well, it was delayed for 2 years. 2 years! For a project so small, it couldn't host a hockey tournament. If it takes 2 years to greenlight a project that could fit in a Costco parking lot, how long do you think it takes to approve a new subdivision? That's why supply is toast. Not because we don't have builders, not because we lack technology, because the system is built for delay, not delivery. Let's talk about prefab, the supposed savior. Not the trailer park chic of the 1970s. I'm talking factory-built wall panels, modular units, entire multifamily blocks shipped on trucks. The federal government and Quebec just dropped new funding to accelerate prefab adoption. Why? Because prefab kills schedule drag and takes weather risk out of the equation. Think about it. While you're shoveling snow off a job site in January, a factory can be pumping out precision cut walls at 21C with no wind, no rain, and no frost delays. So why aren't we swimming in prefab builds already? The answer's simple. Because we're fighting 100-year-old permitting rules and inspectors who still think panelization means gossiping in the lunchroom. What prefab actually solves is weather delays, gone. Labor shortages reduced slightly. Quality control tighter than a drywall budget meeting, but here's what it doesn't fix. Crappy site logistics, slow utilities, inspectors who demand to see the inside of the walls, even though the walls were built in a factory with better QC than their pickup truck brakes. Prefab isn't a silver bullet, it's a high caliber upgrade. If the city plays ball, here's how fast it could potentially move. In weeks 0 to 4, you choose a standard plan, then minor site tweaks. Weeks 5 to 8, factory starts building modules. Meanwhile, crews can dig and pour your foundation. Weeks 9 through 10, trucks deliver the boxes, crane sets them in place. Weeks 11 through 14, stitching, sealing, MEP tie-ins. Weeks 15 to 16, final inspections and occupancy. That's 4 months from go to done compared to what? Probably 8 to 12 months with still stick-built homes. However, the inspector reality check comes in. If prefab is going to scale, cities need a prefab inspection lane. That means accepting factory QC certificates instead of ripping open finished walls. Using digital logs with timestamp photos from the factory floor. Focusing on connections and life safety on site, not redoing what the factory already did better. But hey, this is Canada. We still like to fax things, so good luck. Now, there's the 3D printing wildcard, and let's shift gears and talk about that. Is it hype? No. Is it ready for prime time? Not fully, but it's coming like a freight train. It's already pumping out student housing shells in Europe, emergency shelters in Texas, and even a few custom homes in North America. What's the play? Well, the pros are speed, design flexibility, and lower waste. Cons, code compliance, finish work, and supply of print-grade cement. If you want to see a building inspector cry, show them a house with no studs, especially here on the West Coast, where we have seismic requirements that will blow your mind. But here's the truth. Once code catches up and costs drop, this tech will make curved walls and integrated insulation the norm, not the luxury. What it might mean for you? Well, if you're a builder, start building prefab relationships now. Volume could equal better pricing. Consider standardizing your designs. 1 kitchen core, 3 facade patterns. And now if you're a homeowner, ask about soundproofing, fire ratings, and energy performance. And for the love of God, get it all in writing, because half the prefab market is legit and the other half looks like they just bought a logo on Fiverr. Closing this segment up, the bottom line is prefab isn't the silver bullet, but it is the ammo we need in a housing war we're losing. If we don't fast track prefab, modular, and yes, even 3D printing, families will be paying for the most expensive game and hurry up and wait for the rest of time. And honestly, if Tesla can build a car in 17 hours, why does it take 17 months to build an 1,800 square foot house? Don't answer that. It'll make me swear. All right, we've covered housing politics and tech that could save us. Now, let's talk about the invisible hand that smacks your budget when you least expect it. Money markets, interest rates, and trade spats. So last week, the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, took the stage at Jackson Hole and dropped a hint. The committee sees room for a rate cut soon if inflation continues to cool. Translation, money just got flirty. Wall Street went full happy dance. Dow Jones is up 700 points. Bond yields, they slid. And the Canadian dollar will get there in a second. Why does this matter for builders? Because psychology moves faster than policy. The second Powell hints at cuts, buyers think rates are coming down. I should start looking. So even before the cut lands, demand starts warming, and that matters for your pipeline. Now, our own dollar had its biggest rally in 3 months, closing just shy of 78 cents USD. Now, why do you care? Why do you care? A stronger Canadian dollar means cheaper imports, which is great for windows, fixtures, and appliances. But if you bid a job based on old foreign exchange assumptions, you might have priced it too high, or worse, too low. So if your supply chain touches the US, foreign exchange is not trivia, it's risk management. Pro tip, put foreign exchange protection clauses in your contracts. You do not want to be eating a 5% swing because someone in DC sneezed. So let's talk about Ontario job losses and tariff trouble. And now here's a gut punch. Ontario shed 38,000 jobs last quarter, mostly in manufacturing, thanks to US tariffs on industrial goods. That's not just a stat, it's a ripple. Vendors cut SKUs, Specialty parts are now backordered, and subtrades are getting nervous and demand higher deposits because cash flow just got shaky. Ever wonder why your HVAC guy suddenly wants 50% upfront? This is why. The global spice, India tariff chatter. While we're playing whack-a-mole with the US, Trump's team is floating 50% tariffs on India if negotiations tank. You might think, what do I care about India? Here's what. Tiles, fixtures, quartz slabs, specialty lighting, tons of it comes from India or suppliers routed through that region. If tariffs hit, expect price bumps and shipping chaos faster than you can say value engineering. Mortgage relief? Well, look at Australia. And in Australia, banks passed along mortgage relief within days of their central bank cut. Imagine that here. Imagine BOC trims rates and your lender actually moves the needle on your HELOC or builder line. Instead, in Canada, we play the wait and see game while banks enjoy a little extra champagne. So what does this mean for you? Whether you're building, renovating, or just trying to get paid, here's your job site playbook. Lock key materials now if foreign exchange works in your favor. Bake in price adjustment clauses for steel, lumber, and imports. Keep a rate hold partner on speed dial. Buyers hesitate when headlines screen uncertain. And for the love of all that's holy, communicate macro news to your clients. For example, the Fed hinted at cuts today. No change yet, but we're watching lead times on fixtures closely. Your project is still on track. That tiny update makes you look like air traffic control and not a bystander. All right, let's wrap this segment up. The big takeaway, markets move on whispers. Builders win by acting before the echo turns into an earthquake. You can't control Powell tariffs or the loonie, but you can control contracts, lock-ins, and client confidence. And that's how you turn global chaos into a local edge. Now, let's wrap this episode up and hit you with one last question. We've been all over the map today, from what happens when someone kicks in your door at 3 a.m. to why Pierre Poilievre just turned question period into a UFC weigh-in, to housing starts, prefab promises, and the Fed playing footsie with interest rates. If your brain feels like a framing nailer on bump fire, good. That means you're awake to the stuff that matters. Big picture takeaway? Here's the thread through all of it. Uncertainty steals wealth. In your home, uncertainty can cost lives. In housing, it's why permits take a year. In markets, it's why budgets blow up before you even pour a footing. Every extra day of waiting is a tax cut you can't see, but you pay it in carrying costs, lost deals, stress headaches that feel like an engineer's stamp, and all sorts of other emotional challenges. Should Canada adopt a Castle Doctrine style law for home defense? Something that gives homeowners a presumption of justification inside their own four walls? Or do we keep this fuzzy reasonable force rule that expects you to measure newtons of pressure while someone swings a crowbar in your hallway? DM me, comment, drop a voice note. I want the real answers, the stuff you'd actually do at 3 a.m., not the sanitized legalese. Keep your tools sharp, your doors locked, and your permits moving, because this is Custom Built and Screwed, and we're building more than homes. We're building a conversation this industry needs. See you next week.